Steve Bender, you are finally here. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to finally have you. Listen, you're running for city council of Eagle.
Correct.
And you were also involved in the Ada County Central Committee. Talk to me about why you're running for the city council of Eagle.
Well, as you know, Helen and Melissa are both decided not to run again. I believe that we need somebody on the council who's got an engineer's mindset, like I do, who can look at facts and data, like I do, and who will make a decision based on information, not political position, or who I like or don't like, or who I agree with or don't agree with. What do the facts tell us we need to do? Eagle is a unique city in Idaho in the Treasure Valley. When we moved here, we looked at Kuna. We looked in Meridian. Honestly, I gave my realtor a map and I said, show me a house on this side of the line and you're fired. I wanted to be in the western half of Ada County. And it was a quick decision that we wanted to focus on Eagle. And as soon as I was here, I think it was 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I had a meeting with the mayor, went in to meet Mayor Ridgway, and had a talk with him about things that I'd already heard were happening in the city. And I was less than comfortable with his answers. And I became aware of this group that was at the time a group of citizens. They called themselves Eagle Conservatives. And I worked hard to help get Brad Pike elected, and Charlie Bond, and Jason, because I felt Eagle needed to change the direction they were headed in. And I was proud of the work I did there. After that, there was an amendment to the comp plan that was being rushed through without citizen input, without proper scheduled hearings. It did go to planning and zoning, and there were people that asked me, this needs to die. How do we convince planning and zoning to vote no? I said, well, if we vote no, it'll just go to the council. Let's talk to them about why this amendment is bad. And so 20 of us showed up. We all spoke. After almost an hour of speeches, the Planning and Zoning Commission said, let's put this back on the agenda for next month. And they did. And when it finally got to the council, the new council was in, and they said, no, we're not going to move quite this fast on that.
And my apologies for my ignorance. When you said people were talking to you about what to do, were you working for planning and zoning at this time?
No, this was outside of planning and zoning. These were just ordinary citizens that had worked. We'd all worked together on the campaign. And this was an action by a lame duck council. And we thought it was not the Eagle way to do things.
Gotcha. So you encouraged, so when it came up for review with planning and zoning, just the average citizens, part of this group, they showed up, they explained why they didn't like it. Planning and zoning then felt it prudent to return the item back to the council for consideration in the following meeting.
No, they kept it for themselves to consider.
Gotcha.
And one of the council members was going to be gone, so they put it out 4 weeks. And the result of that is by the time they decided, no, this is not the right way to go, you're right, this amendment needs to be rewritten. So they sent it back to a council with recommendation that it be denied and that they move forward on looking at a rewrite, a whole rewrite.
Gotcha.
Honestly, I went through the plan, all 267 pages. I made a list of, I think it was 500 errors in 267 pages. Now, some of them, they don't affect the substance of the plan, but they were grammatical errors, outlining structure errors where you're repeating paragraph numbers and skipping numbers. Then there were things that were substantive. For example, did you know there were 18 different animal species and 2 plant species in Eagle Island State Park that are of interest and worthy of paying attention to what's happening to them?
I don't know.
And the plan claimed that all 20 of them were not protected. And then it listed the first 2 birds, bald eagle and golden eagle. Now, I can tell you for a fact that since 1940, those birds are protected. And if you don't believe me, just shoot one and watch what happens. You will do 10 to 15 years. They are protected, and the plan claimed they weren't. And that's the type of things where, if we're trying to encourage builders and businesses, we don't want just builders coming into Eagle. We'd like to have some businesses come in too.
Right. And
if we want them to come here, then our product that says, here's our comprehensive plan. You can read this and see why we're the right place for you to come do business. And if it's chock full of errors and just bad grammar and looked like it was thrown together, then, a lot of businesses say, I'm not sure I want to do business with a city that lets this be their bullhorn on what they're really like.
Gotcha. That sounds like this was like the 2019, 2020 timeframe.
It was 2019,
Gotcha.
Right before the old council,
Understood.
The Ridgeway Council left office.
Understood. Since then, right? Because a lot has happened since then. And it sounds like there were, some problems in that time as you and other people saw them. What is going on now that's really driving you to be like, this is the time for me to step in and bring my skill sets?
Well, number one, the comp plan, Mayor Pierce kicked off a citizen committee. There were about 50 of us. He put me on that committee. We looked at the plan. We broke it down by chapter, and over several meetings, we said, okay, in this chapter, what do we need to look at? What do we need to say, this is the right direction, this is the wrong direction? And we had a lot of work product from that. And the next phase was to put it in staff's hand so that staff can say, okay, this is what the committee came up with. They had a couple of options. They can do it themselves. They can contract with a professional planning agency that can come in and help them write it.
Yeah, like a consultant.
A consultant.
Yeah.
Or they can just let citizens rewrite it. They chose to go the consultant route, and as the city transitioned from the Pierce administration to the Pike administration, that kind of slowed down. And Brad had a valid thought about it. He said, we're required by code to review this every 10 years. Well, it's a 2017 plan, so maybe the thing to do is to not do it after 5 or 6 years, but to take more time, let things get a little bit farther down the road, and look at more current data in the 26-27 window.
Sure.
Makes sense. I don't have a problem with saying, no, we're putting the brakes on. That's not what he said. He said, let's use the most common sense approach to doing this. And he's probably right in that. So now 27 is when we have to have this reissued. So this 2-year time frame is now the time to be focused on that. Same reason I ran for the sewer board 2 years ago. They were in the middle of their 20-year plans for collections and for treatment. Now the city's looking at this comp plan amendment. I would like to be involved in a manner where I'm more than just one voice on a committee, where I'm one vote of 4 on, are we taking this plan in the right direction?
Understood. When you look at, let's say from, in the last couple years, it sounds like you first want to have a say in what happens in your city in a more substantial way than just, a citizen commission. Understood there. Are there problems that you see?
I see a few problems.
Care to share?
Well, I thought you might ask. Number one, an issue that's come up, a couple of issues that have come up recently. And the city stepped back from their initial reaction. They said, let's do some town hall meetings. I fully support that. I don't believe that our form of representative government in America means that we elect people and they get to do whatever they want.
Sure.
I believe representative government means that we represent the people. So we bought the Jackson House. I'm not sure that we had everything we needed to know when we bought it. We've learned some things since. They had 5 options. They put them all up on the wall. And they said, hey, we're going to have an open house. Come tell us what we should do with the Jackson House. Pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or tell us if you like 2 or 3 of them. I don't know if you had an opportunity to go look at those. They're online. If citizens watching this podcast want to see, just Google the Jackson House open house in the search box on the Eagle webpage, and you can see what they presented. And what we got out of that open house is, you know what? People don't like any of the 5. We like some parts of this one, and we like some parts of this one. And who in the right mind thought it was a good idea to even propose a 2-story parking garage? Because the cost of that garage was over $2 million, and it's 64 spaces. That means you're paying a whole lot of money for a little bit of parking. It would probably be passed off to a private business to run parking. Well, they're not going to let you park for free. So if you're having to pay $5 or $7 an hour to use this structure, are you really going to want to even make use of it? Some people may feel they're forced into it. People that are used to paying to park downtown in Boise may not see a problem with it. But those of us that are used to finding a parking space on the street or in one of the public lots downtown, and there's free parking, well, you took away my free parking. Now you're making me pay a bundle to come downtown. I'll go somewhere else. And that's a bad idea. The other thing that disturbed me about those 5 is there were a lot of TBDs in the finance box. So they're asking people to pick choices, and they can't tell us exactly how much it's going to cost. As you know, with the party, as you mentioned a minute ago, I was the county treasurer. I'm the state treasurer. I have been the treasurer for 4 separate HOAs that we've lived in, for one condo association where we bought a condo for my daughter while she was in college, and that was right before the 2008 crash, so we were stuck with it for a while. And as the treasurer, I had to make sure that these organizations are on track financially. Condos are required by law in Virginia to have a reserve study and a reserve plan that makes sense, and it has to be done by a professional to develop it. So I helped our board work with the professional who gave us a 20-year reserve study. That was a complicated study because of the way the building worked, and it worked well. We had a good financing plan in place for that. So I bring a numbers mindset to the council as well. I'm looking forward to being involved in the budget development, budget review process, because I can look at numbers and say, this number makes sense. You're telling me you're going to do this for only $300,000? Show me how that's going to happen. You may recall the pedestrian bridge across the river at Eagle Road. That was a almost $3 million bridge, I believe, 3 or 4. Can't quite pull that number out of my brain, but because of grants and other money, Mayor Pierce was able to get that put in for only about $300,000 in city money. It was a great savings for the city. That's where we did the right legwork in advance. Another thing that a lot of people were upset about was the Eagle Water Company. City had a right of first refusal. I was all for that. I wanted the city to buy Eagle Water Company because, well, I was paying $8 a month for water. If they remembered to bill me. My first bill came 7 months after I moved in. That was the problem with Eagle Water Company. They weren't spending money to keep the system updated, so they couldn't get rate increases out of the Public Utilities Commission. And because they weren't keeping up the system, we said, okay, well, the city's got a right of first refusal. When Mayor Ridgway kind of did an end run around that, other people said, no, we have the right to buy this and we want the city to buy it. And then COVID hit. And Mayor Pierce used that opportunity to do a little bit of research, a little bit of study. And we found out, you know what? They think they have $8 million in repairs that have to be made in addition to buying it. We don't have that kind of money. Well, they've now spent over $30 million, Veolia has, to update that system. That $30 million are costs that would have been passed on to the city, not in our budget. So that's a case where we did an appropriate amount of due diligence and found we don't want to do this. Yes, we thought we did, but it doesn't make economic sense for us to buy Eagle Water Company, and we let Veolia buy it.
The French.
They're not happy.
The French.
Yes, I know.
May I ask a question as a numbers guy? And I don't know the answer to this, but first,
Well, I may
with
not know
numbers,
the answer either.
totally
but
fine, totally fine. First, a big numbers problem came from the annexation of Avamore. That was a huge thing that people were saying. Many people have said, "Hey, it's not a never. It's just a not now." And the argument for went that we could benefit from the the tax base up there, as those people were going to be using things that we pay for anyway, like Reed Mallard Park or Gerber Park. And so, hey, we should annex it in because then we get that tax base, and there, as they build out, we will have more of a tax base, so on and so forth. First off, were you in favor or against the Avamore annexation?
That's an interesting question. I had thoughts on both sides of that issue,
Right.
and part of it was digging up numbers. Now, there was a study done by Tisher Beach back in 2021.
Who's that? Tisher Beach?
It's a consulting firm.
Got it. Okay.
And they came in and they said, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. That is still available on the Eagle website. And if you go read that, and I think it's 42 pages, they go into, okay, this is what you're going to gain in terms of revenues from annexing Avamore. And these are the things that you're going to have to expend. Problem with this study is they had 20 years of revenues, and they lumped in 30 years of expenses. Now, you bought this house. I won't get into your personal finances, but if you did it like normal, you probably took out a 30-year mortgage. And let's say you paid $500,000 for the house, you got a $400,000 loan. In 30 years, you're going to pay about $1.2 million for it, because of all the interest that you are amortizing over 30 years. Now, if you're smart and you put a little bit more down towards it every month and overpay, you might shorten that down to 10 or 15 years. If you pay a lot towards it, all of that you pay early takes away interest on the back end. Well, when you look at what's going on in Avamore and you say, well, you've got 20 years of revenues and 30 years of expenses, then come year 21, you're still going to have revenues. You just don't know what they are yet. You're confident in 21 years, you're still going to have income, right? Whether it's passive or active,
Sure.
You're still going to have income, and that's going to pay your mortgage in year 21. And then the next 9 years after that, you're going to have income. Difference is you're going to have income that's gone up in 20 years of inflation, but you're still paying
The fixed cost.
the fixed cost as it was set in that first year. So in Avamore's cost and expense study, they didn't put in all the numbers. And that was always a concern of mine, but I didn't know what those numbers were. I've heard a lot of people say it's going to cost us in years 21 through 30. Well, it is. I mean, it's going to cost you every year to have additional services in the city, but you don't know what those revenues are. You can go figure it out, but until you do, you're only looking at part of the numbers.
Okay, at the 20-year mark, how about this? At the 20-year mark, what was were we making money or losing money?
We were making money in years 1 through 10.
Okay.
We were about break even in years 11 through 20. And that's when the revenues went off. And so they're talking about 20 years from now, Avamore is going to cost us.
What are there balloon expenses that generally come at 20 years or something?
There are not. What there are is, and just like, one of the great things that Pierce did, and I know there's a lot of people that listen to your podcast that just don't like Jason Pierce. There are some things he did that I don't like. First thing that always comes to mind is that trolley.
I was just talking to somebody about the trolley, not somebody from Eagle, but a Caldwell individual. Yeah.
But, one of the things he did is set up our capital maintenance fund. So they're putting money. We know that in 10 years, Reed Mallard Park's going to have $1 million in expenses and repairs sometime in the next 10 years. I mentioned the condo association. We had to do a reserve study. That reserve study tells you over the next 20 years, you're going to have all of these expenses. In year 18, you're going to have $1 million roof repair.
Right.
So you've got to start putting money away
Oh, I'm sorry.
every
There's
year.
a fly here buzzing around your head. My apologies. There's like the
It's
first fly
September.
ever.
Of course
I
there's
know.
flies.
No, but they don't ever make it in here. I have like 10 walls that they have to get past somehow. Anyway, my apologies, sir.
They sneak in.
Yeah.
So
Again, long
that's
term
the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to say, hey, guess what? It's year 10. We got to fix Merrill Park. We got to claw back 3% of taxes so we can pay the $1 million fee. No, they're putting money aside every year.
Right.
And part of the money that goes into that fund is for that year 10 regional park repairs. And they have a long list of things where they're banking money for capital expenses. Yeah, we have, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I first moved here, they had, 6 years ago, there was a $22 million budget. The one they just approved is $68 million.
What do you think about that? A lot of
That's
people,
a lot of growth.
a lot of people have a problem with the number of employees, the total budget number. What do you think about that? That's like a triple in 6 years.
That is a triple in 6 years. But part of that is accounting. The federal budget went up a lot because they brought Social Security onto the budget. That used to be its own separate trust fund. And now that it's been wrapped into what you're spending, it's different. They used to break out the budget, and the state government does the same thing. They have the appropriated budget. They have the federal dollar pass-through, which is huge. And they have the carryover appropriations from past years that get repurposed. And when you add it all together, it's about a $16 billion budget for the state versus about an $8 billion appropriation. So, yeah, we only had $2,200 on the general budget line, but we had other numbers elsewhere.
22 million, you mean?
22 million.
Correct,
Did I say billion?
No, you said 100. No, it doesn't matter. So
Okay,
we had
22
22 million, but
in
that's
2019,
not
20.
accounting for everything.
But that's not everything. That's just the general fund budget.
Right.
Since then, Jason Pierce brought everything onto a transparent budget. I'm real big on transparency. You need to tell people what you're taking in and where it's going. When I was in Virginia, I worked with the school board. I helped 2 members understand their budget. Every year, they'd ask for 20 to 25 million for utilities for about 80 school buildings because it was a 90,000 student school system. Covered all of Prince William County. But then we noticed they're only spending $2 million on utilities. So I went back and I pulled the last 3 budget books. And every year they ask for 20 to 25 and they spend less than 2. And what happens is in the middle of the budget year, that other 18 to 22 million gets repurposed to other stuff. Well, that's not what we voted it for. And then it just staff repurposes it. And so one year we said, nope, enough of this. You haven't given the teachers a raise for 5 years. So the conservative Republicans on the school board are the ones that said, all this utility money that you want to go spend somewhere else, we're going to make you use it for a 5% raise for teachers and staff. And we were the heroes because for the first time in 5 years, the teachers who had not have a cost of living raise, a step increase, or any other kind of a raise got 5%. And they were used to 0, so they were happy.
I would be happy with 5 when I'm used to 0 too. So can you articulate on like what if it was 22, but it was really more like we've gone from 22 to 6. So what portion of that is accounting, and what is that accounting, and what portion of it is just growth of the budget?
I haven't dug into the numbers because you're comparing apples to oranges.
Okay.
I started doing it, but I've got a campaign I'm trying to run too, and so I haven't dug really deep into it. The budget that they just approved last month looked good to me. I mean, there's a few things they've talked about that I'm not in favor of yet. I can be persuaded, but I haven't seen enough justification to say, for example, the Crowfoot Range, the $246,000 gift to a private organization to run a private gun range. As a conservative, my first response is that's really not what a conservative government should be doing with public money to support a private organization, a private business.
Why did they do that?
They haven't done it yet.
Oh, why have they proposed it?
They proposed it. Again, that's one of those unanswered questions. They would like to have that gun range up there. The organization has had trouble moving forward. They're selling memberships. but they don't have the resources to do the build out they're doing, and they're counting on the city of Eagle to help fund a long list of projects. Some people have told me items on that list are not part of the conditional use permit. The board at Crowfoot has said, oh, yes, they are. And I've asked them to please send me, all of this information.
Right.
It hasn't come in yet. Now, I'm only a private citizen at this point.
Right. You can't demand.
I can't.
Yeah.
Can't ask for it and require it be sent before I'll support it. I'm just one vote, one person, of all the citizens. So that's fine. But and my understanding is the city gets nothing in return other than, well, maybe we'll let the citizens join at the Avamore rate. That's a give back, but is it enough to justify when we have a list of capital projects that we have ongoing that are not all fully funded? Should we pull another $250,000 out of that and give it over here? To do that, I would expect to see a lot of justification on why this makes sense for Eagle. I would expect to see a public hearing on what the citizens have to say about should we do this. I would expect to see what are their finances. Are we giving money to a going concern, or are they asking for this money because they're just barely above water and they may or may not survive even with our influx of cash? These are all questions that we deserve answers for. And if I am sitting on the council, I will be asking for those answers before I vote. And if I don't get them, and somebody's asking me to support something without proper justification, like I said, I'm a conservative. Odds are I'm going to be saying no. If I'm persuaded that it's worthwhile, then I might be voting yes. But I can't tell you right now which way I'll go because I don't have all the information.
Gotcha. When we're talking about spending funds here and being conservative, talk to me about law enforcement. This was a big sticking point in the last election, obviously, with former Council President Pike wanting more law enforcement and trying to get closer to the 1 per 1,000 ratio, and former Mayor Pierce, not in favor of that, more concerned about we'll hire based on crime rates. What do you think?
Well, I have no personal law enforcement background. However, my dad joined the San Diego County Sheriff's Department when he was 57. He's a pilot. He had a plane. They needed additional deputies in the Aero Reserve Squadron, and he was a reserve officer except when they activated it. And then he's a fully sworn law enforcement officer. My brother spent 36 years as a sworn officer with the Lifeguard Service in San Diego, and my uncle came to Idaho after World War II, became a deputy in Kootenai County, and in 1960 ran for sheriff. He was reelected 5 times, but in 1971, Governor Andrus said, I need you to come to Meridian. I need you to take over the state police and be the director of law enforcement. And before Kemp Thorne reorganized that whole department, now one of the 20 Idaho departments is just the Idaho State Police. But he had state police. He had the crime lab. He had the Idaho Bureau of Investigation. He had the truckers licensing and, the guys that run the weigh stations, everything. And he had DMV and issued driver's licenses and vehicle tax. All of that under the director of law enforcement. He did that for another 7 years. So I've got a lot of background in law enforcement, and I am fully supportive of law enforcement. What I heard from Mayor Pierce was privately was, we're negotiating with the sheriff's department. If you're going to buy a new car, you're going to walk into the dealer and say, hey, I want to talk about the price, but I'm willing to pay this much, but I only want to pay this much. You're going to tell them how high you'll go, but what you want to start at?
Probably not.
You're not going to be a successful negotiator. Yeah. And before he went to law school, my dad was a car dealer. My grandfather was a Ford dealer. My great-grandfather was a Ford dealer. My great-uncle was a Ford dealer. And my dad was not the favorite choice for his daughter's husband. So in 1957, he made him the Edsel dealer. but he sold Edsels. He sold 250 in a town of 10,000 people. And he is a good negotiator. He taught me to be a good negotiator. And so I understood what Mayor Pierce said, that he's trying to negotiate a better deal with the sheriff's department, because much of their time of the officers on the Eagle Police Force were spent doing regular sheriff's department duties and not the extra stuff that we were paying them about $4 million for at the time. They do our code enforcement. They increase our response time. I know I was at a meeting at City Hall one night.
They increase or decrease our response time?
They improve our response
there it
time.
is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
That's a great.
Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking improve and it came out increase.
No, I got you.
The response time is under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Not, if we did not have Eagle PD, if we were just relying on the 2 or 3 deputies patrolling North County, it may be 25, 30 minutes.
Right. And unincorporated, which we're sitting in right now, when you have there have been times in the past where, there was an emergency and, it took definitely longer than if you were in the city of Eagle.
Right.
Yeah. Now, because they have enhanced service.
Now,
right.
After this meeting, 5 of us are standing outside in the parking lot outside City Hall, just chatting. And this car drove through very slowly. And he stopped. And then he left. And about 5 minutes later, he came back again. Drove through a third time. Didn't stop. Fourth time, he pulls up behind the museum, the historical museum, and puts his lights on their back door. And we'd had enough of this. So we called the non-emergency number. And we said, this car's been cruising City Hall parking lot. And now he's got his lights shining in the back of the museum. So the dispatcher starts asking us a ton of questions. Well, you have nope, never mind. He just drove off. Well, we're going to send somebody over anyway. 90 seconds later, minute and a half's a pretty good response time. In come 3 police vehicles. And the first guy's talking to us, and the second one gets out, and then the car came back a 5th time. And I said, that's him. So one of the 3 left to go stop him. I didn't know if he's going to break into the museum, if there's something in there he wanted, or why he's cruising around. As it turns out, he's playing Pokemon and just chasing down Pokemon Go's. But the point of the story is not that somebody was almost arrested for Pokemon.
My gosh.
The point of the story is 90 seconds is a pretty darn good response time.
Yeah, sure.
He's not going to break into City Hall, but the museum's city property.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
I've
Somebody
had to
being
call
sketchy.
for something else once, and it was about 3.5 minutes. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. And then I had to call once for a financial crime that happened weeks before, and we had to do a report. Well, he showed up that afternoon. That's okay. It wasn't an emergency response. One of the things Brad has done that I love is he lets Chief Ruby do a regular report at city council meeting. And he's been introducing us to the officers that patrol. One of the things, I don't think we talked about it yet, but I do substitute teach. And I'm over at Eagle Meadow and Eagle High a lot, and sometimes go down into Meridian. But our school resource officers are fantastic, and they get to know the kids. It's community policing at their finest, because these guys are friends with police officers. You don't see that in a lot of big cities. They're the po-po. They're the bad guys. Oh, here comes 5-0. Run off. Everybody run, scatter, hide. You don't see that in Eagle, because these kids build a good relationship with our SROs. And so they have a proper respect for law enforcement. And I like to see that.
Yeah. Appreciate
with,
all that.
With this deal,
with that consideration.
Yes, Brad was talking about this 1 officer per 1,000. Well, that's not a standard. That's not a single variable decision maker. And I know he was trying to make a point, but that comes back to what I said earlier about not having all the facts. If you had 1 officer per 1,000 in Los Angeles or Detroit or Chicago or New York, where they're now anywhere from 2.8 to 5.5 to 7.5 officers per 1,000, and they still don't have enough, so they need more than 1,000. And he said, okay, at least 1 per 1,000. But our crime rates And our response times in Eagle were good enough that we didn't necessarily need to follow just that standard. And so the council asked for a level of service study by a professional organization that's a top-notch consultant. That was released earlier this summer. And that laid out some things that we do need to change now. And they did that. They added a deputy, they added a sergeant to handle more of the patrolling supervision so the other two sergeants can handle the administrative side. And they made the decision, which was not in the study, to add a canine. And yes, that's not in the study, but most people are not aware that there is a Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court decision that says, oh, you pulled somebody over and you suspect they have drugs? You can search with a canine. And if the canine alerts to the drugs, then you can search the vehicle. But you cannot detain the person on the side of the road and wait for the dog to get there. There's a very limited amount of time the dog has to get there in that period of time. Well, the dog's down in Boise somewhere. Can't get up here fast enough. We know for a fact we have lots of drugs transiting through Eagle. So if we've got the canine here and we can detain those drugs and get that garbage off the streets, then we're doing good police work. One of the other things it said is for every 7% growth in the city's population, add another deputy. So we have going forward, and we know the city's going to grow more. We have a plan for adding deputies going forward in a schedule so that when we see our populations getting close, we know, hey, next year, budget's going to have to put another officer on there.
May I ask a question about the growth? Like, we're kind of hitting close to capacity in Eagle, are we not? Like, we don't have wide swaths of land that we can, like we have our large master plan communities. I mean, obviously Avamore is going to grow, but within like kind of the lowlands of Eagle, like we're not positioned to grow that much more at this point, are we?
I don't have buried in my brain yet. If you look at a map of Eagle, an aerial photography,
yeah.
You're going to see a lot.
I know Avamore is getting built out like crazy.
So's
Valnova.
Valnova.
Yeah, right.
And they've just started up there.
Well, I suppose this is an irrelevant question because the answer is within the city limits. Yeah.
Okay, great. But you still see lots of farmland out there. But you don't know by looking at a Google Maps photo of where the farmland is, whether it's been annexed into the city, whether they've gone to the county for development, or whether it's still just farmland. And so you've got to go back and look at the city council's map of what's already been annexed. I mean, there's a project that was approved in 2021. I don't know how well you know the Floating Feather Corridor, but you've got 4 ways to cross the river. You can go into Glenwood, you can take Eagle Road, you can take Linder, or you can go all the way out to 16. Well, between Park and Linder, there's 80 acres of what this year was hay, but in past years has been a huge cornfield. That was approved for development 4 years ago. It's been sold off a couple of times. I have been told that the company that has it now is thinking about coming in to maybe change up the plan, make it a little bit higher end homes, maybe make it a gated community. These are just ideas they're thinking about. Who knows what they'll bring into the city. If it comes before the council, and if I happen to be elected, well, then I'm now in a quasi-judicial role as a council member, ruling on development and planning. And I've got to wait and listen to what's put before me in my council package, and then make my decision on that data. Not what I think it should be or what I wish it was. Are they in compliance with the planning documents of the city? Right now, if they talk about this gated community, they would not be. That's not what the current development agreement says. And most people don't realize the city council's hands are pretty much tied. We can change the zoning map. We can change the zoning ordinances. We can change the comprehensive plan. But as it exists today, if a developer brings in a compliant plan with no request for variances, then we're in a position we more or less have to approve it. Our job is to make sure that the stuff that is brought in for approval is compliant. If it's not, we can grant a variance. A great example of doing that is the Pet IQ building. Back when that was brought in for approval, that whole complex around the Garden Inn and all of that office space between the river and State Street was limited to 35-foot high buildings.
Interesting. For fire reasons, right?
Well, no, just because they didn't want high rises there.
Gotcha.
Now, I assume you would not be in favor of a 20-story building in downtown Eagle.
Unlikely.
I would be surprised if you could find a single city resident who would be in favor of a 20-story building in downtown Eagle. We don't want to be Boise. But 59-foot ceiling in that commercial complex probably did make sense.
Right.
And so the council didn't just say, oh, yeah, we'll give you the waiver. They said, no, we need to go look at this zoning ordinance that says 35 feet. That really should be 60. And so they did two things. They changed it overall, and they approved the building at 59 feet. That's where the city is saying, okay, this is where we've been because we haven't looked at this in 5 years. But we're going to do a comprehensive job of examining this plan, and maybe it's time to change something. That was the perfect example of when it's time to change something.
Gotcha.
When you go out west, I think I speak for most citizens of Eagle when I say the Clara apartment complex is not something I would have supported when it came through. It is kind of the laughingstock of West Eagle. And Valnova is planning some high-density housing around their commercial area. It's sort of the village concept that, okay, close into the shops, we can put in more high,
right.
The closer you are to commercial, the denser your population can be. We have duplexes on Hill Road, about 0.4 of a mile from downtown, that were put in at Eastfield. They're adjacent to R3, but they were R8 in that part of the zoning map because it's closer to downtown. The Molinary apartments, which people fought for years, are going in, but so far they put in some of the condos that are for sale. And again, design review made sure that what came in is not a blockhouse. It looks appropriate for Eagle. And that's what the city council's job is to keep Eagle. So I am for responsible growth, meaning growth that is compliant with our planning documents, growth that is compliant with what design review says we want you to look like for Eagle, growth that stays within densities that are agreed upon, and supporting developers who say, okay, these are the rules we play by. I'm going to follow those rules. 8 years ago, they came in with a laundry list of variances they wanted. I had the opportunity to speak at a hearing for a project that had in the package that they sent into the council for them to consider at their meeting in the public hearing, a list of 12 variances. Mark Butler likes to talk about this. I wrote a 3-minute speech because, you get to speak for 3 minutes at the public hearing. And when I worked on Capitol Hill, I wrote speeches for senators because I could write in however they chose to speak, their normal speaking style. I could change my writing to match them. And I honed down all 12 variance requests in this 3 minutes. Say no to this, say no to this, say no to this, say no to this. All 12 of them. I was ready to just blast this project for this dozen variances. Well, Mark had been working on them, so they came in. Okay, well, council member, Mr. Mayor, council, that package that you've got in front of you on your screens there, ignore it. We've got a new one. Mr. Butler's been telling us you're not going to approve this. Too many variances, so we've changed it. They reduced their density. They put in more open space. They drew the houses back from the property line, so they weren't asking for setback variances. They covered every single one of them. And I'm watching this, and I say, okay, yep, they got that one. They got that one. They got that one. They got all 12. So, hey, they called my name. Ms. Bender, you're next to speak. Please give your name and address. So I gave my name and address. And I said, I'm up here to oppose the package that's in, the plan that's in your package. They had 12 variance requests. As you just saw, they've addressed all 12 of them. So this speech, tore it in half, dropped it on the podium and said, I don't need to give this speech. They've already done what they need to do. Therefore, I would like to urge you to, now that this is a compliant project, approve it. I'm for compliant growth that is aligned with Eagle standards.
Gotcha. Speaking of, what do you think about Costco on Hill Road?
That will probably be before the council where I'll have to vote on that.
I'm so excited to hear what you think. Because
Okay.
again, I mean, obviously we can all say just a background, like obviously, yeah, we want mom and pop shops. Yeah, we want to keep Eagle Charm. I think everybody agrees that there is a place for, larger big box stores on the periphery like Costco, or excuse me, not Costco, but like Home Depot, things of that nature. So
Here's the thing.
you tell me, what do you think?
They said Hill Road and 55. You know where that is.
Indeed,
I think
do.
most of your listeners know where it is. That used to be the quarry. Before they took 55, I mean, you want to go to McCall, you used to take Horseshoe Bend
Yeah,
Road.
right. You have to.
Now
used to
that's
have to go
closed
through there.
off.
Yeah, right.
You can't go north on Horseshoe Bend. I live just up the hill and slightly west of 55 and Floating Feather. Would I prefer to drive 3/4 of a mile to Costco rather than all the way over to 10 Mile? Sure. However, that comes with a catch. I drive through that part of Eagle all the time. Sometimes I go down to State Street. If I'm going to Winco or Home Depot, I frequently turn at Hill if I don't go straight across on Floating Feather. One of the things I do just as a security thing is change up my route all the time.
As a security thing?
Yeah, I might take a different path somewhere. Keep in mind that I have death threats made against me as a member of the state executive committee party this spring. FBI told us to treat it as a credible threat. So I change up my routes from time to time.
Can I just say something real fast? Like, what do people think we will be left with if we just act in this manner? Like, it's terrible. Like
Anarchy.
you and I could disagree. Okay, guess what? I probably don't have good ideas anyway, so you probably should disagree with me. But like, come on, man.
Okay.
Like, what a joke. Oh my God, get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm not arm wrestling you.
Arm wrestling is okay. We can have fun with each other.
Yeah,
Say,
right.
Okay, well we'll arm wrestle.
Yeah, right.
We'll do rock paper
Yeah,
scissors.
I'm good with that. But just
we
man,
will not do semi-autos at 30 feet and shoot it out like we're in the Old West.
Just like, man,
So-
like the fact that somebody like you who's, doing work and you can, people can disagree with you. That's fine. It's totally fine. But the fact that you have to switch up your route is just so absurd.
Remember, my family's law enforcement background.
Yeah.
My neighbor down the street moved out. He had to be closer to Caldwell. He was deputy watch commander in L.A. Cartels had put death threats on him. He told me, hey, you see anybody strange in the neighborhood, especially when my kids are home, you just call 911.
Yeah.
He's now out working with Caldwell Police. But, so I take it seriously, but I don't live in fear. But
Anyway, so
I
you switch up your
understand-
route. Yeah.
I understand that, Hill Road between 55 and Horseshoe Bend cannot handle a Costco on that quarry lot. I am 99.4% certain that ITD will not approve an entrance or exit off of 55. You will have to, like you do at Home Depot, have to go down State Street and come into the parking lot from one of either the east or the south side. You're not getting into Home Depot from 55. Same's going to be true at Costco, which means that they need a traffic plan that accommodates the thousands of trips a day that will go in there. If they can show me a traffic plan that appropriately addresses that traffic flow and that they can position that on that lot, that they have addressed all of those issues, then maybe it can be considered. You ever gone to the Nampa Costco?
No.
No, nobody does. they drive to 10 Mile because Meridian did a good job of addressing the traffic. 10 Mile, it doesn't do such a good job of addressing the traffic. Trying to get into the one in Boise is doable only because you can come in from the backside off of Spectrum. If it was just the Cole Road entrances and exits, it would be a mess too. So I don't believe that they can come up with a plan that addresses the problems. I can say that I haven't seen anything. It's not even been talked to the city about yet. Somebody just floated it with Boise Dev. Who knows what their actual proposal is going to be? But for me to support something like that, I have to see a plan that properly addresses all of those issues. And I don't believe, from what I know about traffic engineering, that that can be properly addressed. If it cannot be, I can't support it. If they can, I can think about supporting it. But I think
traffic is going to be prohibitive.
Shooting from the hip, to use a firearm acronym, I say I don't see how they come up with that it works. And if it doesn't work, I'm not for anything that doesn't work in Eagle.
How do we get more businesses that work in Eagle into Eagle? How do we build up our economic base so we're less dependent on, one-time impact fees and whatnot?
We have to do that. Our tax bill is only about 7.5% of Eagle's budget. We take in less than $6 million in taxes, I think even less than $5 million this year, and we've got a $68 million budget. It's coming from fees. It's coming from sales tax. It's coming from the liquor tax. It's coming from the state funneling stuff in for things and from other sources, but it's not property tax. If we build out 30 years from now, when everything's built and we don't get those one-time fees anymore, we're not going to have the money to run the city. We will have to start clawing up the tax to make up that difference. Or we're going to have to pass a levy. And you know what? Yeah. This is Eagle. Good luck passing a levy.
That's a fair point. So look, what do we do? When you're saying, look, it's not that whether I want to or not, we have to do it. How do we do it?
Well, we used to have an economic development staffer. Their job was to go out and bring in businesses. I'll spill the beans on something. Do you like spilled beans on this show?
I love it.
Okay.
God bless them.
Do you like barbecue?
Love it.
If you happen to drive through Salt Lake City, stop in Riverton. There is a great barbecue place that just opened up last month. They're from the East Coast. I got surprised by a luncheon date with my wife, and I'm in this place called Mission Barbecue. They've got unit patches from fire departments, police departments, military. They got the uniforms for all three service academies up on the walls over the TVs. They got TVs all over the place. I'm saying, boy, this is patriotic. You know what'd be cool is if they did the national anthem. And about 3 minutes later, my wife didn't even crack a smile. They ask everybody to stop eating. It's noon. Would you all please rise and remove your covers? And they play the national anthem across the TVs, across the restaurant. That was special. Plus, they have great barbecue. They're moving west. And I've actually contacted the company over the last couple of years 2 or 3 times to say, hey, as you're looking to move west, don't just look at the Treasure Valley in Ada County. Look at Eagle. We like barbecue in Eagle. We've got some great barbecue places now, but I'm a conservative. I'm always for more competition. And I would love for them to be here. And, that's just one business. I know we've lost some restaurants. We've lost some other businesses. But we need to do our best to bring in these small businesses. And, do we want chain restaurants? I hear a lot of people say no. We don't need another Panera. We don't need the Chick-fil-A, everything downtown at East Market. Well, I know people that also think, hey, I don't have to drive to Meridian anymore. So people are on both sides of those questions. But this place is worth having. Yeah.
Dude, what about In-N-Out? Help me get an In-N-Out here, please.
I'll tell you what. I am...
Keep your Chick-fil-A.
Now, I have a failing as a political figure is sometimes I can, and my friends that are helping me figure out how to campaign for this have said, you got to cut the jokes. But I had this great plan that I shared with Jason. You know that empty lot next to Rembrandt's?
Yes.
Well, we put a Chick-fil-A and an In-N-Out burger there together, counterclockwise traffic for In-N-Out and clockwise traffic for Chick-fil-A. Now, it's obviously a joke. It's obviously an idiotic idea, but that's kind of a point being made that, we got to be careful when we bring in all these fast food places. Now, I went to the Meridian In-N-Out when it opened because my wife was raised in California.
Steve,
she was happy.
Could I out myself? I have no idea what you mean about the traffic. What the hell are you saying? Counterclockwise and clockwise. Like, what am I missing?
You're putting two drive-thrus in opposite directions around the same building with two restaurants on either end.
An infinity sign or an 8.
Yes. And it wouldn't work because it would just be crazy, but it would be a disaster. That's why it's
gotcha.
You got to understand.
I was imagining that like they came in and then exited the same spot. I'm like, that could work. Like you just like down near Jovino's, it's like you got that centralized drive-through where I was like, I don't understand. Okay, but I got it. It would be crazy. Yeah, downtown.
On Four Corners downtown, that would never work. But
the one in Meridian. So you took your wife.
She took me there because she's a big In-N-Out aficionado, and.
Was it right when it opened?
Right when it opened.
I hope you guys had a bathroom access or something.
We went early.
Yeah.
Well, the first time it opened, it was not first day. It was about a week later, and I think we had an hour and 10-minute wait outside in March.
I did the same thing. We could have been in line at the same time.
But I will say this. After eating there, I came to the conclusion that they should be banned in Idaho because what they do to potatoes should be a crime in Idaho. Those were the worst French fries I have ever had. However,
what are you, a Freddy's, like 7/16 of an inch skinny French fry guy?
No, I'm kind of a Red Robin fries guy.
Oh, you're a steak guy.
Yeah.
Steak fries.
But also at Red Robin, they're bottomless.
I know. I'm aware.
The way French fries should be in Idaho.
Oh, okay. So it's the French fries.
They have changed.
Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 times we've been there, they have good fries now. I don't know what they changed. I don't know if the whole
they were training a
Maha
lot of people.
thing, they changed the oil, if it just, the machines got broken in. But they're good now. The last 3 or 4 times, it's like, hey, you get your own fries. I'm not sharing. These are too good now to share.
Listen, if you don't know, get them animal style next time.
I've had that once or twice.
Oh, that's a meal in itself. So bottom line is, it sounds like you're not entirely against fast food or chains, but you just want them like what? Okay, not downtown with counterclockwise drive-thrus,
but
like
where they're putting in the Chick-fil-A. Where
sure.
My wife convinced me to join the Sips Club. For our listeners that don't know about the Sips Club, every 2 hours you can go through Panera and get a free 32-ounce drink.
Oh my gosh! Stop.
It costs
that
you.
Needs to be banned in Idaho.
It costs you only, I think it's like $8 a month. So you get 3 iced teas and you broke even. You get a couple of their fancy drinks and you broke even. But now we don't have to go all the way down to Panera. By the way, September 22nd is when they're supposed to have their grand opening at Panera for the Panera people out there.
Panera fans. So it sounds like you're saying, look, location,
traffic. Do not put something in that is going to result in backed up car lines waiting to get through that are coming out onto the roads.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know we're kind of coming up against the time real fast. Talk to me about Parks and Rec, right? Talk to me about, we used to have a plan for West Park. There's nothing west of Eagle, right? Obviously, now we have the gigantic sports complex, but it doesn't really scratch the itch for all the people that live west of Eagle. Help me understand that.
We need parks west of Eagle Road. Back to the traffic thing, Now, the dog park that got moved, that was going to be a dog park, not just a park, over there by Eagle High School. Probably that was a good move. Certainly, we bought that land for $2 million and sold it for $7 million. That was a good move. Financially, that was a sound move. And then we got 80% of the dog park paid for by Pet IQ. That was the one thing that I thought Jason did best, is he brought in partners. So we didn't pay $1 on the dollar. We maybe paid 10 cents on the dollar on some of these projects. On the dog park, it was 20 cents on the dollar. We got a decent dog park. If I'm on council, one of the things for for your dog park listeners, the people that listen to your podcast and like to go over to the Eagle Dog Park, I will pushing very hard to have the mud holes replaced with the cobblestones. Because every time it rains, dogs go and wallow in that standing water mud holes. Who wants to take a muddy dog home in their car and then bathe it? Not me. So, I want to see that change. But no, we can't rely just on the sports park out there in west of Eagle Road to 16. We need to have areas as these new developments come online. I would like to see this project in the cornfield between Park and Linder at Floating Feather say, you know what? We'd like a few acres set aside for a community park and count that as your open space. But you make that not an HOA, open area, common property area. I've been outdoor knocking. I just walked by a couple of playgrounds over in Eagle Mountain Estates that they've put in. Very nice playgrounds, but it's for residents, not for citizens of Eagle. I'm okay if a developer's asked to say, hey, can you set aside some land and maybe put in a little bit of equipment? And then we'll see what we can do for the rest of your project. And you want to move that line from 75 feet from Linder to 50? Maybe we'll think about that. But we'll get something in return. We have a standard, and part of that standard in our development agreements and our planning documents is waivers are okay. You can give a variance if it's a trade-off. So you get to have a little bit lower lot size because you went from 25 to 33% open space. Oh, you want to do this and this and this, but you gave us 20 acres for a city park. That's valuable land out there. At 20 acres is not something the city's going to buy for $10,000. And in particular, if they'll put a little bit of equipment on it, then the city came out ahead. And we put it on our capital maintenance plan. And we know that, 15 years from now, we may have to replace that equipment. So we start banking money for that.
Gotcha. Listen, we've hit a lot of things. I know you have commitments. I really appreciate you coming in. Have we missed anything? Is there anything you want to hit on?
I don't think so. I have met Charlie Kirk. I would consider him a friend. And our church is doing, it'll be over. Sorry, listeners, it'll be over before this gets broadcast. We're not live, but we are doing a memorial service at 6 o'clock tonight for him. And I do need to head home, pick up my wife, and get over there. But thank you for the opportunity to come on the show today.
Absolutely.
I have friends that say, oh, the ranch, it's bad. But, they think everything's bad if they don't agree with them 100% of the time. I've always thought that you, like Margaret Carmel, are a fair and balanced journalist. And I've loved listening to your shows, and I was pleased to come on.
Well, thank you.
And do your show today. And I've enjoyed this experience. We've got a lot to talk. We had a chance to talk about a lot of things.
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks to you. I mean, when we first connected, you said, hey, look, I have some people that are saying don't go on the show because you're not fair, you're not anything. Mind you, I would challenge any of those people to present. It's like I say dumb things at times. That's the way I am. Like anybody talking.
Who do you know that doesn't?
Right. But the bottom line is I really appreciate you agreeing to come on because, again, the real winners are the people of Eagle. They get to hear from you. They have more information about who's running to represent them. And that's really, really important. So
we have former members who are running, former members of the council, former members of the council who is also a mayor. We have people running that are from the left side of the spectrum. We have people running from the right side of the spectrum. But of the other 6 and myself, I believe I am the one who has been most involved over the last 6 years. Those that were on the council before, they stepped away for a while. One of our candidates has been here a year. She thinks right, maybe, but I can't support somebody who's been here that short a time. I kind of chuckle when I see people, I'm a 5th generation, I'm a 7th generation Idahoan. Yeah, well, I wish I had been. I was born in Kansas. I was kidnapped and taken to California, and then I went to work for Idaho Senator Jim McClure. Had my uncle, who was director of law enforcement, telling me all about the great things about Idaho when I was a kid, and I realized, hey, it sounds better than Kansas. It certainly sounds better than California. And then I went to work for McClure and all of his Idaho staff. Oh, they can't stop telling me enough good things. I said, I got to get out there. So in 1988, we made a drive across country, and we routed through Idaho. My wife was 6 months pregnant with our third child. The other two were under the age of 3. And we're in a minivan driving across country. We're still married, surprisingly. However, by the time we got to Billings, she said, I've had enough. We got into Yellowstone, and she said, we're not stopping in Jackson. We're driving all night. I just want to get to my sister's. And so we entered Idaho over Teton Pass at about 10:30 at night. Could just barely see anything, past a couple of hundred deer standing on the shoulder. That's the scariest thing in the whole trip.
No.
And we went down to Twin Falls, went south to Jackpot, and got out of the state before the sun came up. I didn't see a thing. So we came back a couple more times to visit my daughter, who's moved here. We chose Idaho over Florida because, A, it's closer to my daughter, and no humidity.
Or hurricanes.
Or hurricanes.
Or
alligators.
Or Florida.
Or Florida, yes.
Yeah.
And, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Idaho is, in my opinion, the best state in the union to live in. And to my friends throughout the state, I'm sorry, Ada County may not be the best county to live in, but Eagle is the best city in the state to live in. And I believe it to be the crown jewel of the Treasure Valley. And I want to do my best to protect Eagle's history, Eagle's sense of being, Eagle's traditions. And no, we can't be the little 1,500-person town that we were 55 years ago. But we can maintain that sense of Eagle that those that are the 5th-generation residents have protected. And those that are moving here now, they need to listen to the people that have been around a while. I hear lots of ideas say, oh, well, if you just did it this way, it'd be better. Well, that's not the Eagle way. So let's not do it that way until you've convinced Eagle that that might be an improvement. That's why I'm running. And it comes down to 3 words. If you want to understand my candidacy and my whole approach to doing the job, if I happen to be elected by the voters, it comes down to facts and data. I'm not listening to arguments that are based on emotion or somebody's personal perception that might or might not be based on something they read online. I want to see facts and I want to see data. And if you haven't put the facts and data into your presentation, I'm going to ask you to bring it back once you have it.
Steve, thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate you.
Glad to be here.